G'day guys, welcome back to the Supercoach YouTube channel. Today we are going to be discussing the first week of practice matches and I've got some notes that I will take people through, speak about what I liked, what I didn't like, that sort of stuff. So let's get into it. Firstly, just some overarching views of the whole all 9 games. The practice matches are very open. We know this, we've seen this before. That makes it really hard to gauge contested players' ability. That's mostly relevant for rookies as we don't really care about premiums and mid-prices that we already have data on. And it also, for this season in particular, makes it really hard to work out the impact of the ruck rules. So I think we're really only going to see that in round 0 when there are 4 premiership points up for grabs each match. Another one, the skill level was really poor across the majority of the games. This is mostly because a lot of the good players were playing State of Origin, so I guess that makes sense. Just some general observations. So let's get into the games. The first one is Geelong versus Hawthorne. Now, this game was almost entirely irrelevant, in my opinion, but we will discuss a few players. The first one is Connor McDonald, who his coach recently said would be playing as a forward predominantly with some midfield time in this season. The CBAs for Connor McDonald were quite hard to read because in the first quarter, he got about 50 to 60% of them, and then they slowly fell away each quarter. I'm not sure what that means. Generally in these games, the first half is the most relevant data. Teams start to sub players out and manage guys after half time. But I have no read on this position. He did play very well. So yeah, that is another one to watch next week and in round 0 because the Hawks play then. It also looks like the Hawks will play both Reeves and Meek in round 0. I will say I don't think that Reeves is capable of scoring enough playing or sharing the ruck role. I'm not even convinced he could score enough rucking on his own. However, if he does knock out a big score in round 0, he will be much more interesting because it will affect his price. I believe that's how it works. I can actually check that. If I go to a player who was a rookie last year playing round 0, who played round 0 last year? Collingwood did, but they didn't play any rookies, but they did play people. So I should have worked this out before. Let's do this. Did his price change after 2 matches? It did. So round 0 does count for prices. Always good to check that. So if Reeves has a good score in round 0, he will be enticing because then he spikes a score, even though that first week is the least relevant. But I do think that is unlikely. I will say that much. SSP hopeful Flynn Perez, I think his name is, looked all right. I think he'll be about 113k when he comes in because he has played before. He looked pretty good. Hard to see him breaking into that Hawthorne defence. Also, I'm not going to be talking about premiums and mid-prices much. I won't be talking about premiums much in this video because they generally cruise in these games and you're really just looking for role. And generally with premiums, you already know their role. For Geelong, let's clear this. There was Jay, I think his name is Jay. Yeah, Jay Polkinghorne, who played because Cameron was injured, but got up the ground a lot, took a heap of marks, and generally looked pretty good. So he's one that you could maybe, if he plays round 1, you could maybe have at F8, because his scoring is going to be pretty up and down, playing that sort of tall that gets up the ground role. I suspect that it'll be between him and Ollie Henry for round 1 selection. So unlikely to be an option, but I thought I would mention it. And then finally, with Geelong's ruck situation, it was very hard to get a read on that. So they used all of Edwards and De Koning. I can't recall if Blitzarves played. I don't think he did, but they used Edwards and De Koning. Edwards was athletic, but I don't think he'll be ready round 1. My read on this is that they will use a combination of Blitzarves, De Koning, and Stanley in different sections of the ground, and none of them will be pickable. So that's my opinion on the first game, which was Geelong and Hawthorne. Let's move on to the next one, which is Brisbane versus Carlton. Kadeen Coleman is the first player to mention here. Looks to have Callum Archie's old role. Don't think that I will be selecting Kadeem Coleman based on that. He played maybe a little bit of halfback time in the fourth quarter, but was predominantly forward and wing. Very good user and will be dangerous up forward. Just not sure the scoring will be consistent enough to justify selecting. Dan Annable was... he was involved, but he was off the pace is the way I would put it. Getting to the spots, but when the ball did come his way, just couldn't adjust to the speed of AFL. Very reasonable for a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old. I don't know how old he is. But I don't think he'll feature early. Maybe a downgrade option later in the season. It is also worth noting that there was no McCluggage in this game, so the CBAs would be a bit skewed. For example, Will Ashcroft, the general consensus is if he gets 60% plus CBAs, he will be a top 8 to 10 midfielder. I would agree with that sentiment. However, I don't think it will happen, regardless of what his CBAs were in this game. Lincoln McCarthy. Not a name that I thought I'd be saying at the start of pre-season. Thought he looked pretty good off half-back, to be honest. I just don't see how he gets selected in the side, and I just don't see why he would play half-back over Coleman. So, obviously, I'm not the coach. It may happen anyway. 170k for poor job security is not really something that I am interested in paying for. Let's now move on to the Blues. Jagger Smith looked quite good. Elite skills. The only sort of knock on Jagger is that he is quite skinny, so he might get bullied a little bit by the bigger bodies. I want him on field in round 1. That's all I'll say about Jagger. Not much commentary needed for him. He's going to be elite. Taylor Byrne is a small forward who I believe looks like he will get selected in round 0 for Carlton. His role is not good. However, with small forwards, particularly when they're priced like this, they just need a game or two where they kick a couple goals and they tend to spike enough cash that they've made money. This is unlike Kako, who started 50k more expensive, so had to score 50k worth of points extra. So Taylor Byrne, one for your watch list. Not sure the role is good enough. Maybe forced to pick him based on other rookies. A rookie that I think will not be selectable, but played all right in my eyes, was Harry Dean. Has a bit of mongrel about him, I can tell. I know his old man did. So looks exciting for Carlton supporters. Don't think he will be worth picking in Supercoach. However, I do think he'll play round 1, particularly with Wiedering out, although that might be throwing him to the wolves a bit. Liam Reedy. So was clearly second fiddle to Pitnet. And when he did play in the ruck, he could not beat Cody Curtin. For those of you who don't know Cody Curtin, that is Dan Curtin's younger brother, who is 18 years old. He could not beat him convincingly. So Liam Reedy, surprise, surprise, is a donkey. This is not a selection, guys. I think he's likely to play at some point, but only because Pitnet is fragile, is the term I'll use. And I just don't think he's any chance to score, even if he does play. Even if he plays solo ruck, I have no faith in Reedy scoring and would only go there on the bubble. So Liam Reedy is an absolute no for me. He was terrible. So the next game I've got is the Gold Coast versus Saints game. How are we doing for time? We're doing all right. Okay, Gold Coast versus the Saints. Let's clear all of these. All right, Petrarca. I know I said I wouldn't talk premiums much, but Petrarca did look quite fit. Really hard to get a read on his role. A lot of guys were going through the centre bounces for Gold Coast. Obviously, no, Rowell and Anderson didn't play as well. Not sure how to read this. I think this is going to come down around 0, to be honest. And obviously, Rowell won't even be playing then. But at least we'll get Anderson and we'll get an idea of where Hardwick is playing Anderson and Touk, presumably when they're not in the midfield. It looks like off half back. But yeah, Petrarca looked quite fit. He looked in better nick than he did last season. So big tick for Petrarca. Next one I've got is Leo Lombard, who I thought was pretty good off half forward and the wing. Got involved a bit. The role is not great, but he, as I said, he got involved a bit. Good tackler. So yeah, he is currently sitting at F7 for me, and a pick that I am quite liking at the moment. It is worth noting that having these round 0 rookies can be good for 2 reasons. One, you can loop them for captain scores, and for 2, they get a price rise earlier unless they have the round 2 bye, which is really good because if they fall apart, in round 2, but they've already got a price rise, you can at least make some money correcting them to someone else who is on the bubble. So that is worth noting. What have I got next? Zeke Hewland. Really struggled to get involved. He obviously didn't play much footy last season. He was struggling in the conditions, which in his defence were terrible for all and sundry, but he was cramping up a lot. He was playing on the wing and a little bit of half forward, couldn't get the ball much. So I think this is a no for me. His price is too elevated. He is obviously going to be a ripper player, and he will likely be a premium for us at some point, but I don't think he'll be a selection as a rookie. The one that I was more intrigued by, who didn't play in the first half, which suggests he's behind Hewland in the pecking order, was Dylan Patterson. I think the weakness in the Suns list is creative use of half-back, and I think Dylan Patterson has that. I'm just not sure that he will get backed in enough to show that. But I do think he could offer the Suns something that they don't currently have, which is interesting. His ball use was pretty good, and he was quite exciting when he did have the ball. So I would really like to see Patterson selected at round 1. I don't think his job security is going to be good enough to justify the price point, but he'll be a good watch at the very least. So not particularly Supercoach relevant in my opinion. Last one for the Suns, Jamarra Ugle-Hagan. Really looked off the pace. So as I said, really bad conditions, particularly for key forwards. It was warm and dewy, which means it was hard to mark the ball. And obviously the less fit players would have struggled more. Now Jamarra hasn't played much footy recently, so you would assume he is less fit. But yeah, really looked off the pace. If I was a coach, I'd be more inclined to give his spot to Jed Walter or Liam, what's his name? Ethan Reid, who was playing a bit of wing. So yeah, I'm not sure if Jamarra will start the season. I have generally thought that he wouldn't because he's missed so much footy, but I was surprised that he actually played in this game. So that is Jamarra. And then for the Saints, I'm not going to spend much time discussing these two, but Sam Flanders and Mateus Filippo are absolute locks. I think they are likely to be F2 and like F4 or 5. So yeah, just lock them into your side, provided they're fit round 1. So Nazaya was fairly quiet, which is very unusual for Nazaya. Obviously, it's a preseason game, and he would have been coasting. His role was like predominantly CBA mid and then forward when resting. I'm not sure if that is going to result in greater scoring than he had last year, but obviously he's still going to be a top 6 defender. My one caveat with Nazaya and Sinclair, who didn't play, is with Flanders and Filippo in the side, along with Jack McRae, is there going to be enough ball for Nazaya and Sinclair to actually score well enough to be justifiable starting options? I'm not sure. We'll obviously get a look in round 0, and we will likely get a look next week. But I think that is food for thought and worth considering. Okay. Rookie player, Jack Carroll, who he was absolutely dreadful. Got a reasonable amount of the ball, but every kick was a clanger. He was a tough watch, and I'd be really surprised if he played over Hunter Clark in round 1. I don't know what Hunter Clark's health is like at the moment, but that would surprise me. The other one who's on the list that should be vying for his spot is Toby Travaglia, who I thought would actually be ahead of Carroll to begin with, but allegedly not. We'll see. This is not a pick that I like. I've been fooled by Carroll once. I don't really want to be fooled by Carroll again. And then the last one is Tom De Koning, who he was fine in the ruck. The ruck split is what interested me more, and I'm going to use the first half stats here, which was 70-30, Tom De Koning, Rowan Marshall. De Koning's major advantage over Marshall is that Marshall is a significantly better forward than him. I think 70-30 is good enough to justify picking. Obviously, there is the fear that Marshall will get more ruck time as the season goes on. But yeah, I think De Koning was a tick in terms of the ruck minutes in this match. All right, the next match we will discuss is the Dogs versus the Swans. Just going to touch on Errol really quickly. Had a lot of CBAs. Obviously, no Chad Warner, but it was about 60% in the first half. And he looked very good. So he's in my side for now. Again, Mills and Blakey, I won't put them in, but Mills and Blakey got a lot of footy. Pretty common of teams with outside players who like moving the ball in the preseason is their outside players look really good and they get a lot of the footy, as I mentioned earlier. I'm not reacting to that at all from this, but they did look good. Okay, a potential rookie is Malcolm Rosas, who I thought looked quite good. I think from a football perspective, the Swans have lacked those pressure forwards, particularly with Papley being injured a lot. So I think that he will play round one. I think it'll be him or Detoli with Papley. The role isn't good, and he's a little bit of an elevated price. Probably not worth picking, but he is an option. So just thought I'd point that one out. Jai Sarong did virtually nothing. I would actually argue he was poor, and I am not convinced that he will be selected ahead of Rampy, Melican, and McCartan in round 1 or round 0, which means he will probably not be selected. So we might have lost a rookie there. May get a run in the mid-season though, so still one to keep an eye on. Grundy was dominant in the ruck, but playing against someone who had never played before, so don't really want to dwell on that too much. Angus Sheldrick, I think he's a no for me. $3.55 is a lot to pay for a guy who has no outside game, who I think's job security will be at risk throughout the season. So Angus Sheldrick is a no for me. For the Western Bulldogs, what's his name? Jarks. There is a Q in there. I don't know what his first name is, I apologise. Lockie Jarks. I thought he was quite good. So Dale played, I think, about a quarter, but Jarks was involved when Dale was playing. He was pushing pretty high up the ground, but also getting back. I thought his use was pretty good, and then when Dale went off, he got a lot more of the footy. So big tick for me. He's apparently ahead of Bramble and Carmichael, who we thought Carmichael would get a run early. So Jarks is one that I really like, and he is currently at F6 for me. I do think he is potentially fieldable. Emmett, who I raised in the ruck video, he's no good. Just was getting dominated by Logan McDonald, who has obviously had a few more years to develop and looked okay himself. But Emmett is a no for me. Played only ruck, not key defence, where he's been training though. So just thought I'd point that one out. Artie Jones looked quite good. Now, there is plenty of data on Artie Jones showing that he cannot accumulate or score Supercoach points. Another year in the system, looked far better than he ever had to me. So I think he's worth keeping an eye on, but probably not someone you want to be picking. But as I said with Reeves, a big round 0 score could make the pick much more appealing. So one to watch for sure. Joel Frazier, who's going to be in at F6 here, had a lot of CBAs. I think it was about 60%. Did not play very well. Obviously, we're not really reading performance into these games, but the role was good, but there was no Bont or Richards or Treloar. So not sure what to make of that. We will get a better look next week and in round 0. And then there's been some talk of Libba playing off halfback. I just don't think that will eventuate. It doesn't really make sense. It was like Clary playing off halfback 3 years ago or whatever. So that's the Dogs and the Swans. Let's clear this again and let's get into Richmond Essendon, who with this game I was quite interested in as there is a lot of rookie priced players. The first one I want to discuss is Jacob Farrow, who is comfortably Essendon's best kick already. And I thought he looked quite good, was calling for the ball. Wasn't particularly quick, but I think Essendon will continue to play this chip marked style. I think we've seen Scott adjust to the trends of the competition very slowly, and I think it will take another year for him to adjust. But I did really like Farrow. I think he's fieldable. So big tick for Jacob Farrow. And he is also playing halfback, not midfield, as was reported earlier in the season, in the preseason, sorry. Dyson Sharp is the next one to discuss. Played exclusively off half forward with no Zach Merritt in the side in the first half of this game. That makes me think he won't get picked in round 1. However, a lot of time still before that. There's 2 weeks. We will get a better idea of that next week when Merritt presumably plays. In the second half, when he did go on the ball, he looked much better. The first half, he did struggle to get involved, had a nice helicopter kick with his first possession. But in his defence, all the Essendon skills were pretty poor in that first quarter. But yeah, don't think we're going to get Sharp at the start of the season, which is a shame. Parrish, not really worth discussing him much. He was cruising around, but he looked quite good. Not at his best. I don't think he'll ever get back there, but he was quite good. 43% owned. Would expect that to jump before lockout in round 1. So Jordan Ridley is injured again. Poor guy. Would love to see Jordan get a good run at it because I think he is a genuinely good player. Just don't see much of him anymore. And the repeat soft tissue injuries absolutely kills your speed, which was one of his weaknesses in the first place. I do think this could be relevant for Max Kondoyanis. Apologies if I butchered that name. I don't think this guy will have much scoring power, but we have seen generally all Essendon rookies at least go like 55 plus. So if he does play and he looks like he'll get 6 or 7 weeks, maybe he's an option. I think our options in defence are actually pretty good, so I'm not overly worried about selecting Kondoyanis, but one to keep an eye on. Caldwell, I don't think is going to get enough CBAs to justify starting, but who knows? Not for me, I would say. Too injury prone as well. So that is Caldwell. Let's talk about the Tigs. Lawler looked extremely good in the first quarter before fading out of the game a bit and managed at half-time, which was predetermined by Richmond. So no injury concern there. He is playing the Dusty role. Not sure the role is going to be good enough to justify starting at that price, but he looked absolutely huge physically and played really well, I thought, when he was on the ground. So that's Lawler. The next one is Sam Cumming, who was in my side before this game and is no longer. Played exclusively half forward in the first half and struggled to get involved. We do see this with a lot of rookies who are midfielders when they're drafted. They get jammed into half forward and they really struggle to get involved early in their career. I think Cumming is going to be one of those. In the second half, he was more involved playing in the middle, but again, the first half is generally the big sign in these games, so I don't think it will eventuate for Cumming. Still could be pickable, not sure, but based on this game, it is a no from me. Let's talk about Sam Garill. See if I can spell this right. Go me. Was really good. Got a lot of the footy. Worth noting that Sam Banks didn't play. He will play next week, so we'll get a better gauge on his role next week. But when he did have the ball, I thought he made stuff happen. And I'd be willing to pick with that role. With the role that we see next week, I think I'll be less interested. But he ticked the boxes this week for sure. And the last Richmond one is Rechko, who seems to have been dethroned by the bloke with the mullet, Hugo Ralphsmith. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be a pick early in the season, but we may get him later on. He didn't play in the first half. All right, GWS versus Collingwood. I think this game was mostly irrelevant due to the Giants having no midfield and Collingwood having their entire team out, pretty much, with the Origin game and Josh Dacos being managed for whatever reason. So, Clayton Oliver. Statistically looked very good, but on the eye he looked exactly as he did last year, so this pick is a no from me. Obviously get a look next week and in round 0, but I don't think he will be a keeper, which you would really like him to be at that price. As I said, the GWS midfield is very depleted. No Finn Callahan, who we think will play in round 0. Tom Green out for the season, very sad. Brent Daniels had some sort of hamstring issue 12 minutes into the game and got managed. No Josh Kelly. Is there anyone else? Cogs also didn't play because of the State of Origin. Enter Harry Rowson, who I was quite impressed with. 270k, obviously not playing against much of a midfield at Collingwood, particularly with no Dacos boys. However, he was good, and I think he's going to get the opportunity, particularly early in the season. So, one to add to your watch list for sure. Probably the biggest round 0 watch, in my opinion. But yeah, one to watch. Has good junior numbers and good VFL numbers, I believe. So, definitely keep an eye on him. Daniels, as I mentioned, hamstring injury, 12 minutes in. You can't pick this. You just can't. So, that's my opinion. I think top 3 injury-prone players in the league are like Ridley, Daniels, and Sean Darcy. So, I don't think you can go with Brent Daniels. Ripper player when he's up and about, though. The GWS ruck situation was really weird. Let's actually just filter by GWS here. I believe they all have ruck status. So, it kind of looks like this, where Riccardi was the primary option, and then Briggs and Madden both played forward, but also pinch hit in the ruck. It was pretty much evenly split, the ruck time between these 3. But Riccardi being the first option is really weird to me, and I'm having a hard time reading. So, I think you can't pick any of these guys. I think Madden was the most intriguing of the lot, but I don't think any of these guys are going to be an option. The ruck spot, the primary ruckman at GWS, looks to be very much up in the air. So they are all a no from me. And then moving on. Oh, sorry. Last one on the Giants. They have a glut of injuries to their midfielders and their wings. So Cody Angove went down. Josh Kelly obviously going to miss the bulk of the season. Tom Green out for the year. Brent Daniels injured again. Not sure how serious the injury is. I'm not sure if I mentioned Cody Angove, but probably played a bit of half forward or wing if he was fit. And then Cogs has been beaten up. Like, it's really hard to get a read on what this Giants side will look like in round one. Does Lachie Whitfield get pushed up the ground like he did, I think it was last year, because of all their injuries? I'm really hoping not. It sounds like Toby Green is going to play in the midfield. I will say Delana looked okay. I actually don't know what price Delana is. Where is he? He should be here. 119k. He looked okay to me as well. Maybe they have enough mid-half forward types that Whitfield, doesn't get pushed up the ground. But something to keep an eye on if they have a couple more injuries going into round one, I think. Then Collingwood. The only thing relevant for Collingwood was Harvey Harrison, in my opinion, who didn't play the first half, but was pretty good when he came on. I don't know if he didn't play the first half because they're managing him or because he's not in the side at the moment, but he was okay when he came on. So one to keep an eye on. And then let's talk about Melbourne versus North. This was certainly the weirdest game in my opinion. North Melbourne were absolutely horrific. So I don't think there is much that can be taken from this game. So I'm probably just going to focus on roles here. Sorry North fans. Hopefully that's not what the rest of the season looks like. But North were a genuine training drill in this game. So hard to get a read on a lot of players' abilities, but we do have a lot of role information. So Doveston did not get involved a lot. He was playing small forward as expected, but he did not get up the ground as much as has been anticipated by track watchers and draft experts. So I think for me, he's a no at the moment. Just has the typical small forward role, and I don't really want to go there at the moment. North pressure was insipid as well, so don't know if that factors in with Lachie Doveston, but he was no good. Let's talk about some Melbourne players. Xavier Lindsay is mid-only. He was taking kick-ins. I have no idea what the Melbourne halfbacks are going to look like, if I'm going to be honest. My current read is it's going to be 3 tall forwards for Melbourne, plus Lindsay, plus Trent Rivers for half the time, that's 5 players. And then it's going to be it's going to be Howes as well, so there's 6, and then probably 1 to 2 of CJ, Tholstrup, and Salem, who I don't really have a lot of faith in any of them at halfback. But Lindsay did take 1 kick in. Worth noting that Tom McDonald took the bulk of the other ones, but I don't expect Tom McDonald to play in round 1. I think it'll be Turner, Lever, and Petty as the key defenders. So that's stocks up for Xavier Lindsay. Definitely one to keep an eye on in the next practice match. The next one I want to talk about is Caleb Windsor, who was, by all accounts and by my own account, quite poor in this game. Didn't have a good game. When the ball came towards him, a lot of the time he just fumbled it, and his hands weren't particularly good. So I'm going to say that he just had a bad game. His role for the first 3 quarters was elite. He was in pretty much every single CBA he was on the ground for. So that's what we want to see. That matches the track watch reports, so I am willing to go with that. Worth noting that Rivers and Pickett did play, so the only people missing for Melbourne were Gawn, who is playing in the ruck and not affected by the smalls, and Viney, who's not going to play the start of the year. So Caleb Windsor's role was a tick. The ability to play the role is a little bit of a question mark. I am still quite confident in this pick. I think he's going to get fed handball receives. As I mentioned, North offered no resistance, so it was pretty much just Melbourne got the ball and kicked it forward and just scored. Like, it was that simple. There was no need to change direction. There was no need to do handball receives or anything like that. It was really simple game plan for Melbourne, and they feasted on North. So I thought that it was worth noting. Trent Rivers, I know there is some interest in Trent Rivers. This role is really uncertain to me. Took some kick-ins, had some CBAs. Just not sure about this pick. Interested to see next week. The next one, Cozzy Pickett. I think North Melbourne are just barbecue chicken for Cozzy Pickett. I'll talk about Latrell as well. Both got a lot of the footy and kicked a lot of goals. North have proven time and time again they don't have a matchup for Pickett, so he's obviously going to feast on them. The interesting thing with Cozzy Pickett is that he followed the ball around a lot more than he had previously. I think the CBAs might actually be a touch lower than last year, but the overall mid-time will be much higher. That should be a net positive for his scoring ability, so I really like Pickett as a selection at the moment. Latrell is playing the classic small forward role, similar to Doveston. Just had a better day because the D's did. Not sure about this pick. Think he is too expensive, but another watch for next week. And very confident he will play round 1. I do want to talk about Taylor, who did not play in the first 3 quarters. I was very certain that Taylor would play round 1. I am no longer as certain. As I said, I don't think there's going to be a spot for him in that side. I hope he is picked because, as I said, I don't have a lot of faith in CJ, Salem, or Tholstrup, whereas I do Taylor, and I would like to see him get games. So that was my read on that. Jack Steele was in every CBA he was on the ground for. This pick is not for me, but I can see the interest. So Jack Steele role was a tick. There was a North Melbourne SSP hopeful called Becker, who I thought was significantly better than Caleb Daniel when he came on. I'm guessing he will get an SSP spot, particularly with Hardiman getting injured, which is very sad for North. One of the guys that actually does defend on that list. So yeah, I think Becker is a name to watch. I think he could get a halfback role at North once he is picked up. And then I do sort of want to address the elephant in the room for anyone who watched this game. Tristan Cherry was absolutely dominated at centre bounce by Max Heath. He was much better around the ground, but he was taking the front position at all throw-ins, and every single throw-in dropped short, so he was heavily advantaged by that. I'm not reading into the ruck stuff until round 0. I've made that decision. I do think you need to think about an option in the rucks, though. I know I got some feedback on my ruck video. People suggesting that people are overreacting. They definitely could be. But I do think you need to have a backup plan for if the rucks look like they will not score as well as they have in the past. It was evident in this game, but Cherry coming off the 6-day break, which normally isn't relevant. However, he did just have his first hit out of the year, so one to watch. And the other one I want to speak about is Callum Coleman-Jones. There has been some suggestion that he will play over Trembath as a better ruck option. I'm not sure what that means for him or Cherry, but one to add to your watch list, I think. All right, let's talk about Port versus the Crom, the almighty Crom. So I want to start with the Crows. McAndrew was quite good. I think he won the ruck battle. He also, the big thing here was he took marks around the ground, which means he's not totally useless outside of the centre bounce. He did lose a lot of the around the ground contests, but if the I've been speaking so much. If the around the ground contests drop, that goes in his favour. He could take contested marks. He also got forward and should have kicked a goal, missed from 10 metres out, as all ruckmen do. But massive tick for McAndrew. If there is a playing R3, I think I would actually be comfortable fielding this. So big ups for Lachlan McAndrew. I will talk about Dante Vicentini in the same role. I do think this guy is not... his job security is going to be so bad, I think. It could just be one bad game and Sweet's in, because Sweet's going to dominate the Sandful. I think we all know that. So this might be a tricky pick. It could work out like Flynn, where plays a couple games, is dropped in round 3, but if you hold him until the end of the mid-season buys, he comes back. It's going to take a courageous player to pick this, I think. He is currently not in my side. He has been, but he's not. Currently, I'm really struggling to read the Port ruck battle. Worth noting, I do think Port will be bad. So that may help Vicentini because he's younger than Sweet. Not sure. Don't have a read on this. Anyway, Miles Bergman in the first half did have a lot of the CBAs. His kicking was quite poor, but I'm not reading into that in a practice game. The role was a tick. I'm interested to see this next week. I'm currently fading him because I hate the round 12 bye for one. And for two, I'm still a little bit suspect on the scoring power and the role together. The sample size was small last year for that 60% plus CBA role, about 8 games. Who knows? Couldn't begrudge someone for going there though. Rosie was mostly in defence, so not going to mention him. Todd Marshall came on in the second half, which is alarm bells to begin with. He then played behind the ball and was dreadful. So I'm not sure he even took a kick in. So big concern over Todd Marshall. I don't think he plays round 1, but there are others who believe he will, potentially forward. I don't know. I think if he plays forward, he is pickable, but he's much less enticing not having kick-ins. Will Brodie was Will Brodie. Good on the inside, terrible on the outside. Think he'll play the first 2 weeks when there's no Ollie Wines. Think he'll probably play at some point in the season at least. Not sure how this goes. He will be on field round 1 for me because he'll probably score 70 plus. As someone who faded Brodie that whole season, he was taking the piss at Fremantle. So good signs for Will Brodie. Rochelle CBAs were okay. There was no Isaac Rankin. This pick is not for me, but couldn't fault someone for going there. Chase Jones, 119k. Lock him in on your bench, in my opinion. I'm not sure why the coach doesn't like Billy Dowling, but I think Jones will play the first 6 or 7 weeks at the very least. He should be able to make cash in that environment. He will be playing wing, but I think that'll be okay. I think he'll be ahead of Scholl. And then Isaac Cumming is the other one that will affect him, but I think he will play on the other wing when he's fit. I'm wondering if I'm missing a winger, but I don't think I am. Let's just filter, just to make sure my information is right. Who plays wing for this team? It's Scholl. Oh, Curtin's injured, so available from round 7 onwards. Yeah, I think Jones will play until Curtin's back, so I really like that pick. I would add him to your bench rotation. Braden Cook, I thought looked okay off half-back. Still questioning his ability to accumulate. But he was very good in my opinion. So could be a pick. His elevated price. Not sure about the job security. Don't really know what the distribution is going to look like in Adelaide's defence. But he may be an option. And then Worrell, for those who are interested, took a lot of the kick-ins. But did not play on from many of them. So read into that what you will. All right, last game, Freo versus West Coast. There was no Sean Darcy, so the Luke Jackson role was very hard to get a read on. He was very good, but he was playing against Flynn and Cooper Duff-Tytler, so that is not really a surprise. We will get a look at this next week. Sean Darcy is allegedly going to play, currently dealing with a calf issue. Mason Cox did play, but not very much. My read on that is, if Sean Darcy does go down, Cox will play, but he will be a relief ruck, which means, hypothetically speaking, if Sean Darcy is missing the start of the season, we're going to need to ask ourselves, how many games do you think Sean Darcy needs to be out for us to justify picking Luke Jackson? I think the number is 4, which seems low, but that's my take on it. I think he's going to clearly be R1 if he plays solo ruck, so food for thought there. Luke Ryan, allegedly not in the best 23, currently played 2s. That affects Jordan Clark, as he will not have the monopoly on kick-ins then. Judd McVie was getting pretty high up the ground, and Brandon Walker was doing a fair bit of rebounding. Not sure how this all affects Jordan Clark. However, there may be upside because Luke Ryan does not look to be in the best 23 at the moment. Don't think that will last very long, I will say that. Hayden Young played mostly mid with a bit of forward time, got through the game, that's all you want to see. Moving on to West Coast, Josh Lindsay. I'll put Hayden Young in here really quick as well. Josh Lindsay. He was pretty good, I thought. Kicking is good, took a couple kick-ins. Ryan Marriage took a lot of the other kick-ins. I am not a believer in Ryan Marriage starting in this West Coast side, but I am not the coach. Worth noting that McQualter was a terrorist last year, so a little bit of buyer beware with all the West Coast rookies. That being said, did like what I see from Lindsay. Think he's fieldable, but I'm probably not quite confident in that yet. Currently in my side on the bench. Let's talk about Dersma, who was quite good today. which was a tick from a talent perspective, but the role is quite bad. It is entirely wing. 200k for a winger who has never played an AFL game. I don't care how good the talent is. I am not interested in that. I know others will be, but that is not for me. Cooper Duff-Tytler was also good today, but again, he is playing predominantly full forward in a bad West Coast side. This pick is not for me either. He's too expensive. We saw with Luke Jackson that he couldn't make money. These types in their first year generally don't make money. This pick is not for me. There will be some that go there though, but I will not be, unless I have to. The one who I was most impressed with, who didn't get a lot of the footy, but his role isn't good, is Jacob Newton. He's currently at F7 for me. He's playing like a half-forward role, but rolling up into the contest. Did get a CBA, not reading anything into that. Worth noting that Noah, I think his name is, Long, looks to have suffered a serious knee injury, which is a shame because he's a good young player that West Coast sorely need. But that should help Jacob Newton's job security and scoring ability. So add him to your side for now on your forward bench. Do like what this guy does. Schonberg, is he forward eligible? No. He was okay. He's been more impressive than Dev Robertson and Finn McRae. I don't think he even played today. But I thought he was pretty good. I think he might play early. I think he's capable of at least making 100k. Probably worth starting at this point. Worth noting he's also playing this half-forward type role. So not a great role for Supercoach, but I think he's mature enough that he will be able to score in the role and contribute to West Coast. Dev Robertson did get a few CBAs, but played predominantly wing. Just don't overthink this one. Just select him. Not sure if he's fieldable, but we will get another look at that next week. Harley Reid and Murphy Reid. Both looked quite good. High CBAs for both. I don't think Murphy Reid's CBA is going to be good enough to select. Harley Reid was excellent today. Looks to be much fitter than he came into the season last year. Couldn't begrudge someone from picking him. Still not sure I'm going to go there, but he's going to spike some scores and he's going to make 150k at some point during the year. So did like what I saw from Harley today. Not in my side yet, but was very interesting. The next one I want to talk about is Tim Kelly, who is 400k, mid-forward, had a lot of CBAs today, so think he's worth watching. I have a feeling he's going to be top 6 forward, but not sure if anyone is game enough to go there when he got dropped last year. And the last one I want to talk about is Tom McCarthy, who had a lot of CBAs. Not sure his contested game is good enough to select, but he had a lot of CBAs, and I couldn't begrudge someone from picking him based on that. So that is my review of the practice matches. If I missed someone, let me know in the comments. I will reply to you and give you my thoughts. But yeah, keen to see more next week. I think we'll get a much better idea of how the players look next week and their roles. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And I will see you probably sometime this week with a premium video. So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.